Good morning, committee. Pause. Okay. Good morning, committee, and welcome to members of the public joining us today, both in person and online. This is the 16th of November 2023 meeting of the Western and Southern Area Planning Committee, which is one of the three area-based planning committees of the Dorset Council. Our area of remit covers the previous Weymouth and Portland Borough Council and most of the previous West Dorset District Council areas. The Planning Committee is not a public meeting, but a meeting to which the public are invited. All attendees must comply with the ruling of the Chair. They must not interrupt the meeting or cause undue disturbance. To support this, please switch off your mobile phones and select silent mode for the duration of the meeting. Members of the public are allowed to record or film any part of the meeting. However, they should conform to the protocol for filming and audio recording of public council meetings and not distract from the proceedings. Those filming should only focus upon those directly involved in the conduct of the meeting. The meeting is also being live streamed, and a copy of the recording will be available to view on the council website after the meeting. No fire alarm test is expected. If the fire alarm sounds, can all present leave the building as quickly as possible by way of the closest exit and follow the directions to the nearest assembly point away from the civic offices. Public amenities can be located in the foyer of County Hall adjacent to the main entrance. Members of the public who have given advance notice of their wish to speak on an application will be invited to address the committee for the maximum of 3 minutes. No material is to be circulated to members of the committee. For the benefit of the public, my name is Councillor David Shortell. I am chairman of this area planning committee, and my vice chairman is Councillor Jean Dunseth. Good morning, Jean.
Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning to you. To introduce other members of the committee, Councillor Dave Bolwell. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning to you. Councillor Kelvin Clayton. Good morning, Kelvin.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Councillor Susan Cocking. Councillor Nick Harlan. Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Nick. Councillor Paul Kimber. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning to you. Councillor Louis O'Leary. Good morning, Louis.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Councillor Bill Pipe. Councillor Kate Weller. Councillor Sarah Williams. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning to you. Councillor John Worth. Good morning, John. Officers involved in the meeting include Anne Collins, Area Manager, Western and Southern Team, Laura Altry, who's the Senior Lawyer Regulatory, Thomas Wild and Shanta Parsons, Senior Planning Officers, Charlotte Loveridge and Robert Parr, Planning Officers, Elaine Tibble, Senior Democratic Services Officer, and Joshua Kennedy, Democratic Services Apprentice. Good morning to you all. Good morning. Right, item 1 on the agenda, to confirm apologies. Any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. So we've received apologies for absence from Councillors Cocking and Councillor Weller.
Nothing from Councillor Bill Pipe? No, okay. Item 2 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Does any member have any declarations of pecuniary or other conflict of interest, bias or predetermination regarding any item on the agenda? Right, we'll take Councillor Dave Bolwell first.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Item 5C, for clarity, it's listed as Bridport application, whereas in fact it went through Symonsbury Parish Council and none of the Bridport team have seen it or commented on it. So I'm happy to stay in the room for that one and take part in the vote. Items 5E and 5F, I chaired the planning committee that this application has been through. Accordingly, I will leave the room and not take part in the vote on that particular item. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Councillor Susan Cocking. Sorry.
Councillor Sarah Williams, yep. Bridport Ward. Having taken advice, I will declare an interest on applications 5E and F, as I know the applicant.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise with Councillor Bolwell, items 5E and 5F, I was on Bridport Town Council Planning Committee that supported that. So I will leave the debate at that point. And as I understand, there are no urgent and exempt business. If, with your permission, we will leave the meeting at that point. Thank you.
As those three items are the last two on the agenda, then that would be perfectly in order. Councillor Borkember.
Good morning, Chair, fellow councillors. The two items regarding Portland, whilst I'm a Portland Town Council, I'm not on the planning committee, and for information, I didn't attend. Obviously, I know both of those places and locations, but I've had nothing to do with them, and not involved in them. I mean, if any councillor feels that I'm too close to it, then please say so. But no, I'm happy to stay.
Okay, Paul, thank you. Councillor Kimber, thank you.
It's okay.
It's okay. Okay, I've just checked with our lawyer, and all of those are in order. Okay. Oh yeah, okay, item 3 on the agenda is the minutes. To confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of October 2023. Has all members received a copy of those minutes? Thank you. If all members are content, I will sign those minutes as a true record of what took place. Right. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Thank you. Right, members, item 4 on the agenda is public participation. Only members of the public who have registered to speak on an application will be invited to address the committee. The order of speaking will normally be the first 3 in objection and the first 3 in support, including the applicant or agent. If a ward councillor who is not a member of the committee wishes to address the meeting, they will be allowed 3 minutes to do so. Neither the objectors or supporters will normally be questioned except to clarify a point of fact by the chairman. All written statements received by Democratic Services have been passed to members prior to this meeting. Are there any public participation which has been requested?
Not at this stage, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, members, now we take item 5 on the agenda, and that's planning applications. Excuse me.
Yeah, anyway, sorry. So perhaps, since we're all very conscientious councillors and have read the reports, the very first application on page 23, on the item 9.7, is it? It actually mentions Councillor Paul Kimber supporting the application and bringing it and ask for it to go to the planning committee.
Councillor Allen, I take that note and I will come back to Councillor Paul Kimber to respond.
So it's a large building that I felt should come to the planning committee for deliberation. That was all. I didn't have any. I believe it could be loosely that I'm probably for it. So what I will do then, I'll withdraw from this committee on this item. Is that, would that be acceptable with the legal team?
So to clarify, were you supporting the matter coming to committee rather than? For clarification, were you supporting the matter coming to committee rather than being dealt with under delegated powers, or are you in support of the application?
I was more in support of delegated powers on this one. The reason I wanted to hear the full debate on this, and that's why I forwarded it onto the committee. If you feel I'm too close to this, then please advise me, and I'm happy to withdraw.
I'll come back to you, Laura, to respond.
I don't think you're saying you're predetermined. I think that maybe the way it's been written on the report is slightly misleading, but it doesn't sound to me like you've made up your mind already. What you were asking for was the matter to come to committee for decision rather than a delegated decision. Is that correct?
I've been advised, therefore, Councillor Kimber, that it's okay for you to stay and participate. Can I come to you, across to you, Anne?
Sorry, Chair, I've just found the actual comments that we've received. It said, I fully support this application. I'd like to see this looked at by the Planning Committee.
Right, I'm going to come back to you, Laura.
Is that right? Maybe then if you think it's better that you withdraw, then perhaps that would be better.
My advice, Councillor Kimber, would be for you then not to participate in that particular item. I'll do the preamble and then we'll go into 5A, and at that point, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, thank you. Right, we have 6 planning applications before us today for consideration. A comfort break of 5 or 10 minutes will be taken as and when is required. The first item on the agenda is item 5A. Councillor Kimber. Okay, item 5A on the agenda, application number PHOU 2023-03923, Hardy House, Castle Road, Portland, Dorset, DT5 1AU. And that's for the conversion of an existing hostel accommodation into 5 in number, residential flats, and insert roof vent, which is different, of course, to what's listed on the agenda. This has been amended by the recent update, which I asked the committee, have you all received the updates as related to all the items on this agenda? Yep, thank you. So that's been revised to include insert roof vent. And I'm going to invite Shanta Parsons, the case officer, to introduce this item. Over to you, Shanta.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for the delay. Good morning. This application is brought to committee today because the application site is Dorset Council-owned land. Now, the application is a full application for the conversion of existing hostel accommodation into 5 residential flats, together with the insertion of a roof vent. The site is located, as you can see outlined in red. It is within the Underhill Conservation Area, and it's a large, locally important building. It's known as Hardy House. It comprises of a 28-bed youth hostel accommodation, and as can be seen, it's surrounded by residential or built up, primarily residential development. Now, this shows the location plan, again with the site outlined in red, set within relatively large grounds, as you can see here. Castle Road runs north-south alongside the boundary. To the west, and to the south and the east, there are residential properties. There is an existing access that leads from the site to Foylebank Way, which goes on towards the Portland Community Hospital. And this access also leads directly onto Castle Road. And this aerial just basically shows the context of the site within its surroundings. I'm just going to run through some photographs of the site. This is the front of the building, which is elevated slightly higher than Castle Road, but faces onto Castle Road. And as you can see, in the foreground is the existing tarmac parking turning area. This is panning around now. You can still see the front of the Hardy House on the left-hand side of the photo, and then 3 of the residential properties on the other side of Castle Road. And then this is looking within the tarmac drive area in front of Hardy House, looking directly opposite Castle Road towards the residential properties, and in the same location, but looking northwards down along Castle Road. This is the existing entrance into the site. This is the rear of Hardy House. And this is the rear amenity area at the back of Hardy House to the south. And as you can see beyond are the buildings beyond the site to the south. Now, this is the existing layout, and it's a little bit difficult to read because of the land levels. You can make out the existing siting of the building here and the existing roadside boundary wall and the access into the site. And this is the proposed layout. It's proposed to incorporate the existing access to the development, use the existing tarmac area here and parking area. And in terms of the alterations to the proposed building, the proposed alterations externally primarily comprise of the provision of a ramped access to the front here and a smoke roof vent to the rear elevation. Existing elevations on the left of the picture and proposed on the right. The top right elevation shows the front of Hardy House, and this shows the proposed ramped access. The side elevation below, you can just about see some detail of the ramped access here. Now, looking again at existing and proposed elevations, the elevation here is the rear, and the arrow is pointing down towards the location of the proposed smoke roof vent. Again, in terms of the side elevation, it's quite difficult to establish, well, there's very little change, which is why you can't see much change. And what you can see is part of the ramped access proposed. Going through the ground floor, the floor plans now, the proposal is, the existing property was is a 28-bed youth hostel accommodation. It's proposed to convert the building to 5 self-contained flats. Now, this is existing on the left, proposed on the right. There are 2 flats on the ground floor, 2 two-bed flats. And at the first floor level, there would be, again, 2 flats. One is a 1-bed and one is 2-bed. And the top floor, the second floor, there would be a 1-bed flat. Now, in terms of the principle of development, the site is located within the development boundary and a predominantly residential area, where applications for the change of use and conversion to residential use is generally supported in accordance with policy. Hardy House was previously used as a 28-bed youth hostel, which has not been used as such since the start of the pandemic. And it's understood that during the pandemic, it was used as emergency COVID accommodation and then subsequently used to support the unhoused residents within the Dorset Council area. The agent states that due to the restructuring of the Youth Hostel Association nationally, the association are no longer interested in running Hardy House as a hostel and have relinquished the tenancy agreement with Dorset Council. Therefore, the proposal is put forward by Dorset Council, being the landowners, to seek to change the use of Hardy House to 5 flats and to provide accommodation for houseless families as a way of making the best use of the property now the tourism function of the Youth Hostel Association has ceased. Policy Econ 6 of the local plan seeks to resist the loss of hotels and larger guest houses, unless it can be demonstrated that the tourist function is no longer viable and that there is no market for the business as an ongoing concern. While a youth hostel association hostel isn't a typical hotel or guest house, it does serve as a tourism accommodation. And in this case, the applicant and agent states that there's no likelihood that the Youth Hostel Association would take on the running of this building. The reason for the proposed development is to help meet the Council's key cabinet commitment of housing for local people, utilising what would otherwise be an empty building. Whilst the housing is proposed to accommodate homeless people, it's not considered necessary to condition the use of the proposed housing for that purpose only, given that the site's location within the defined development boundary and that it's in a sustainable location where the provision of open market housing accords with policies of the local plan. It's considered that in this instance, the benefits of the provision of housing would outweigh the loss of the hostel accommodation, given that there's no realistic prospect of the youth hostel being brought back into use, and given that there are several other hostels in the wider vicinity that provide hostel tourism accommodation. And as such, the principle of the proposal is considered to be acceptable. In terms of the impact on the character of the area and heritage assets, the site is within the Underhill Conservation Area, and while Hardy House is not a listed building, it does form part of a group of important buildings of non-designated heritage asset value. The external alterations proposed are limited and would have no adverse impact on the character of the building or the heritage asset or the wider area. In terms of impact on highway safety, there would be no alteration to the access or the parking arrangement, which includes an access off 4-Bank Way and a relatively large tarmacked area and turning area that can accommodate space for at least 6 cars. Given the previous use of the site as a hostel and the ample provision of parking and turning, the proposal would have no adverse impact on highway safety. In terms of residential amenity, there is an existing large grassed amenity area to the rear of the building, which would remain to provide amenity area for the future occupants. Given the distances between the upper floors of Hardy House and the existing neighbouring properties, and given the previous use of the building as a hostel, it is not considered that the use of Hardy House as flats would have any undue adverse impact on the existing neighbouring residents. The recommendation is therefore to grant consent subject to 8 conditions. Those conditions are listed up on the screen and include the standard commencement within 3 years, the standard approved plans condition, retention and safeguarding existing trees and hedges, submission and approval of details of the proposed roof vent, submission and approval of details of the bin store, provision of parking and turning area to prior to dwellings being occupied, provision of cycle parking facilities, and the removal of permitted development rights to form means of enclosures so that the rear amenity area won't be split up into lots of little pockets of garden area. Therefore, the recommendation is to grant consent subject to those conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Santa. Thank you very much indeed for that presentation. There are no public speakers on this one, so I'm going to go and ask the committee if there's any questions of a technical nature for the case officer. Councillor Ireland.
Switch your mic on.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Ireland, Crossways Ward. The Portland Town Council had a desire that the accommodation is for local people, and in the report it mentions that Dorset Council may run it for homeless people, but we're not going to condition that. I just wonder why we can't put some conditions on to satisfy either of those.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. I come back to you, Santa, to respond.
Thank you, Chair. We wouldn't be able to condition it. It would be something that we'd normally deal with via a Section 106 agreement. And the applicant is Dorset Council, and we aren't able to enter into a Section 106 agreement with ourselves. But notwithstanding that, that's not our reason for, saying we don't require one. The reason is that we're in a sustainable location here where the principle of converting the building to residential is considered to be accepted by officers. And there's no policy, we don't have a policy that specifically requires homeless accommodation to be provided in terms of our local plan policy. And therefore, there would be no justification for conditioning it if we could, or putting a Section 106 agreement on it if we could. It's in a sustainable location. The development is acceptable in its own right as permanent residential accommodation without any occupancy restrictions.
Thank you very much indeed, Anne. Councillor Ireland, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I'm not happy, but yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of a technical nature for the case officer? Okay. Before I open the debate, members, may I remind you to direct any questions or remarks through the chair, and I will invite members to speak in turn. I also ask members to state their names before addressing the committee and speak directly into the microphone. Microphones should be kept on mute when not speaking. So, if there's any one wishing to speak, please indicate. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Kelvin Clayton, Bridport Ward. As I see absolutely no reason to not accept the officer's recommendation, I recommend that we do. And that is a proposal.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Councillor Clayton. There having been a proposal placed on the floor, I need a seconder before I continue.
Councillor Worth put his hand up.
I think... Councillor O'Leary, were you intending to second that? Yeah. Oh, right then. Councillor Worth.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I did indicate first. So, yes, I'd like to second this proposal that we accept this application. Thank you.
I apologise, Councillor Worth, for getting the hand show out of order. But yes, you're seconded. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right, okay, I've got... just a moment. Over to you, Anne.
Sorry, Chair, just a small technicality. We did have an update on the update sheet, which members should have all received, which would just clarifying description. Description development had already been amended to emit roof lights before we wrote the report, but it was just an error. It came up on the top of the report that solar panels, not roof lights, sorry, solar panels were included. There are no solar panels. It's only for the roof rent and the ramp, the only external alterations. So just to be clear that if members were proposing approval, it would be with that amended description. on the update sheet.
Thank you very much indeed, Anne. Councillor Clayton, your proposition is for the amended application. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair, I had read the amendment.
You, Councillor Worth, that's you're okay for your seconding the amended application. Okay. Oh, I thought I had been. Right. If there's no more deliberation and members are satisfied that they have heard the entire presentation and debate, I will take the vote by show of hands. All those in favour? Okay, for the benefit of viewers viewing from home, that is a unanimous decision to approve the application. Thank you. Okay, we go on to the next item on the agenda, and that's item 5B, which is application number PFUL 2023-04322, Weymouth Harbour, Weymouth, Dorset, DT4 8AJ. And that's for the removal and reinstatement of railing to harbour wall to facilitate permitted development to repair, refurbish and maintain harbour walls 4 and 4I, including raising the capping beams and improve level of flood protection. And I now invite Thomas Wild, the case officer, to introduce this item. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for the slight delay there. So yes, as you said, the application is reference PFUL 2023-04322 for the removal and reinstatement of Harbour Wall 4 to facilitate permitted development works of repair, refurbish and maintain the harbour walls 4 and 4I, including raising of the capping beam to improve the level of flood protection at Weymouth Harbour. Just say the application is before the committee today as... the application is before the committee today because the council is both the landowner and the applicant. So this slide shows the site location of the harbour walls that are affected by the application. So the red line as submitted encompasses the stretch of harbour walls along North Quay in front of the former Weymouth and Portland Borough Council offices, as shown here. We have Town Bridge to the east and Marina Berths in the harbour to the north, and then the Weymouth and Portland Borough Council offices to the south. Following the amendments to the application during its determination period, the application now solely relates to the eastern section of this site where the larger railings, which are to be removed and reinstated, are located. So this is a zoomed-in view of that location, showing those railings. So it's from this point here where there's a transition in the height of the railings up to Town Bridge, where the railings are to be removed and reinstated. Just to talk briefly about the scope of the application, just to explain the situation. As originally submitted, the application was incorporating additional works, which included the works to repair the harbour wall and the removal and reinstatement of all of the railings. However, following some discussions, it has been confirmed that the works for the removal and reinstatement of the western section of railings and the works to repair the harbour wall can be carried out under permitted development rights. So the scope of the application has been amended and reduced, so it only relates to those railings which cannot be removed and reinstated under permitted development rights. So that just explains the revised scope of the application. The slide on the screen now shows the extent of the work, the total extent of the works that are proposed as part of the permitted development works, as well as the works to the railings. Just for some context, it might be a bit difficult to see on the screen because of the size and scale of the plans, but if you can see the blue sections dotted here, we have quite a few vertical sections. Those indicate ladders on the harbour wall which have corroded, which are to be removed and replaced. We have green sections, generally horizontally, some smaller sections moving along. That shows the removal of spalled concrete and spalled corrosion from the reinforcement. And then the red sections at fairly regular intervals shows the removal of spalled concrete and corrosion from the reinforcement, and then the replacement of the spalled concrete with a concrete repair patch mix. Those are the works that are being carried out under permitted development. And this is the western section of the wall. So the western section of the wall is a masonry construction, so the works are slightly different to reflect that. So the blue sections horizontally are the repointing of masonry, and there are some sections in orange which are replacement of masonry with new masonry, and then along the top of the wall, the clearance of vegetation and fixing joints on the capping beam. Photograph of the railings that are affected. So these are quite historic railings along the harbour wall. They appear in historic photos of the site dating back to the 1930s and before. So we can see there's quite decorative octagonal stanchions with smaller stanchions in between, and the horizontal white railings providing some enclosure to the harbour wall. And then we have just illustrates the difference between the taller railings, which are concerned with this application, and then the shorter, more modern railings, which are less decorative, which don't need planning consent for their removal and reinstatement. And the reason for that difference is the height of the railings. The lower railings sit below 1 metre, and the higher railings are above 1 metre in height. So just turning to the main issues, the principle of development, the site is located within the defined development boundary. The works would maintain the character of the area and are required for the delivery of essential works of maintenance to the harbour wall. In terms of the character and impact on heritage assets, the proposals in the whole would maintain the character of the area. There would be some harmful impact as a result of the removal of the railings on the character of the conservation area. However, the reinstatement of those railings once the works to the wall are complete would allow for that harmful impact to be reversed. So in the whole, there would be no net harmful impact. Just to mention that comments have been received in respect of the potential for items of archaeological interest on the sea, on the bed of the harbour, and a condition was recommended in respect of that. That hasn't been proceeded with in respect of the condition because of the revised scope of the application, and the archaeological works now it wouldn't be considered reasonable given the revised scope of the application. In terms of flood risk, the site is, as you might expect, is located in an area of flood risk, being on the harbour wall, but the works themselves would not result in any increased flood risk or increase the risk of or the population at risk of flooding. And in terms of highways, any impacts would be limited to the construction period, with appropriate management would not result in unacceptable impacts. And there would be a while the railings are removed, there'll be a safety barrier installed in place to ensure that there's no safety issues as a result of the ongoing works. Therefore, the recommendation is that the committee grant planning permission subject to conditions which are the standard 3-year time limit, the approved plans list, and just to note that on the update sheet there is an amended wording of the condition just to reflect some slightly amended plans that have been received, and a and a method statement for the removal and reinstatement, including a timetable for those works to be submitted and approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Thomas. Thank you for that excellent presentation. Again, we've got no speakers, so I'll go straight to the committee and ask if there's any questions of a technical nature for the case officer. Anyone wishing to ask a technical question? Councillor Paul Kimber.
Thank you for the presentation. Flooding has always been quite concerning around that area. Where do we see the future in this and trying to alleviate flooding? Thank you.
Well, in terms of this application, it is solely for the railings, so they wouldn't really have any impact on flooding at all. The wider works of the harbour wall have included some increasing of the railing of the capping beam, which would have some beneficial impact on flooding. But ultimately, the scope of the application is to do with maintenance of the harbour wall and facilitating that essential maintenance.
Councillor Kimber, are you happy with that answer? Thank you. Is there any other questions of a technical nature for the case officer?
No.
Okay, I now open the debate to members. Is anyone wishing to speak? Right, I think...
Councillor Worth.
Councillor Worth, you were just in time then.
Yes, Councillor John Worth. Yeah, I see no reason to refuse this application, and so I propose we recommend approval of this application as in the paperwork. So that's my proposal. Thank you.
And Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Councillor Worth. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, John, for beating me to it. Councillor Sarah Williams, Bridport. I would like to second the recommendation.
Thank you very much indeed. We've got a proposal duly proposed and seconded. I'm going to bring in Anne for a moment. Over to you, Anne.
You know what I'm going to say, Chair, the update sheet, just to clarify that it's the recommendations incorporating the update sheet.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that because I was just about to say that proposition and duly seconded is that in accordance with the update sheet as we've recently received. Thank you. Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, are there any other speakers? Right, okay. If there's no more deliberation and members are satisfied that they've heard the entire presentation debate, I will take a vote by show of hands. All those in favour? For the benefit of those viewing from home, that was a unanimous decision by the committee. Thank you very much. Okay, committee, now we'll take item 5C on the agenda, application PHOU 2023-04785, 3 Pump Cottages, West Road, Bridport, Dorset, at DT6 6AE. And that's retain and alter ancillary building. Now that's going to be introduced by the case officer, Robert Parr. So over to you, Robert.
Thank you, Chair. Good day. So, as I said, this is to application to retain and alter. Oh, it's not shared. Why is it not shared? Okay, all good. It's retain and alter ancillary building. The application is brought before members in accordance with the Constitution as the proposal includes Dorset Council land. So the location of this site is the west of Bridport. It's accessed directly off the A35 with Colmer Hill to the north and the village of Simonsbury to the north. and it's indicated here with the pink star. The application site includes a shared access track, which is accessed directly off the A35, leading behind the existing dwellings. Includes the dwelling of the 3 pump cottages and its garden to the north. The application site is outside the defined development boundary. It's not a listed building. It's not within a conservation area, but it is within the Dorset area of outstanding natural beauty. This aerial photo provides more context of the site within its surroundings. As you can see, the gardens to the north, and they're all separated by this shared access track. This photo shows a view of the existing building here, which has been erected without the benefit of planning permission. The view is from the main dwelling looking northwards towards Colmer Hill. This photo shows the west elevation of the existing building with the side entrance door that would remain. This photo shows the north elevation of the existing building with number 3 pump cottages there in the background. And this photo shows the east elevation of the building taken across the neighbour's garden. Building here. So here we see the existing floor plan with the neighbouring boundary fence here. Existing north and south elevations. Existing east and west elevations. And the block plan. We can see the access track, number 3 pump cottages, and here's the building retained. So the proposal is to reduce the existing building by approximately a third, and we'll be removing this sort of northern end of the building, which would reduce the overall mass and proportion of the building. The roof is proposed to be a sedum roof, which would help it to blend in with the existing landscape. Here we show the proposed north and south elevations. The deck area and steps would be removed here. And then we see the proposed east and west elevations. You can see the building is significantly smaller and reduced in size and proportion. So the key planning issues, the site is outside the defined development boundary, but local plan sus2 allows for extensions to existing residential dwellings, and policy house 6 allows for extensions subject to extensions being subordinate and in scale and proportion to the original dwelling, and not to harm the character of the locality or its landscape setting. The principle of development is therefore accepted. Oh, sorry. The design of the proposed building, with its reduced scale and proportions and the sedum roof, would be subordinate to the original building and is not considered to harm the character of the A and B, and is considered acceptable in design terms. No adverse impact on highways has been identified. There's no adverse impact identified on wildlife and habitats. The impact on amenity is considered acceptable. And other matters raised, there was concern over discrepancy over roof materials, which has been clarified now, and as presented. Issues regarding connection to main sewer, that was not considered a planning matter. The use as an Airbnb was raised, but this application is not for a holiday accommodation, and this can be controlled by planning condition. And concern over the subsequent reinstatement of the decking, once planning permission is addressed, was raised. However, that is not considered to be permitted development and so would require a subsequent planning application. Therefore, the recommendation is to delegate authority to the head of planning of the service and the service manager for development management and enforcement to grant permission, subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement, to require the works to alter the building in accordance with the approved plans are carried out within 6 months of the date of the planning permission, and subject to planning conditions in relation to approved plans, occupation and use restriction. Thank you, Chair. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you for that presentation, Robert. I now invite Mr. Simon Ludgate, who's the agent, to address the committee. Please speak directly into the microphone. You have 3 minutes. Over to you, Mr. Ludgate.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a great deal to say on this, obviously, because the recommendation is for approval. I am a little concerned that a legal agreement has been put forward on this application. I can personally see no reason for having this legal agreement. It would be quite sufficient to put a condition on requiring the works to be carried out within a certain period. And this is going to lead to my clients having a significant cost, probably just under £1,000, to have a legal agreement drawn up. And I don't really see that as being particularly relevant in this instance, but maybe there could be a legal opinion on that. But I would certainly ask that you support the recommendation for approval, but possibly not to have the legal agreement with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Ludgate. Now I'm going to call on Robert Power to respond with any salient points he may wish to clarify. Over to you, Robert.
Thank you, Chair. I just refer to my legal colleagues to see if they can respond to that that question mark about whether or not a legal agreement is required. Thank you.
Okay, I think I'll bring in Anne at that point then.
Chairman, I think I'm being asked to reply to that. We did consider a condition, but didn't feel that we could have a condition that would require completion within 6 months, so it would have to be a Section 106 agreement.
Thank you for that response. Just a moment. I'm just going to go back to Robert to if there's any further points you wish to raise.
No further comments, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Councillor Kimber, what was your question?
Sorry, Chair, I didn't quite hear the position with the legal agreement. If you could just clarify that again, thanks.
Yeah, we considered whether a condition could be used to complete that development within a set period of time, but that's not possible, so we need to do that via a 106 agreement.
Are there any questions of a technical nature for the case officer?
Councillor Ireland.
Councillor Ireland.
Thank you, Chairman. Nick Ireland, Crossways Ward. I'm slightly confused about the extension bit. You know, I think the average man in the street would assume an extension is something that's built onto the existing property. So I guess it's some sort of technical thing, which I don't fully understand, as Councillor Ball was telling me I don't. But given it's a standalone structure, would it be appropriate that we impose a condition that there's no permitted development going forward? We've done something similar recently on others. And it mentions several things in the report saying to do X, you would need planning permission. But I guess there are some things which may be permitted development on a structure such as this, and maybe we, as a committee, might wish to impose a condition that they are removed.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. I'm going to come back to Robert to respond to that question.
Thank you, Chairman. With regards to the extension, obviously it's the extension of the the residential accommodation, if you like, and as such, but it's within the curtilage of the residential unit, therefore it's considered associated with that. In regards to permitted development, in this instance, it was not deemed, considered required to impose that condition, Chair.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Ireland?
I'd probably like a further wider explanation of why it wasn't considered necessary.
Can I come back to you then, Robert, just to add to your previous reply?
Obviously, within permitted development, there are certain dimensions and requirements that you need to fulfil to fall within permitted development, and in this instance, it was not considered that it would be necessary to remove such those requirements, and that's our summary.
Thank you, Robert. Right, okay. Are there any other further questions of a technical nature for the case officer? Okay. So, therefore, I open the debate to members. Is there anyone wishing to speak?
No.
No one wishing to speak? If there's no more deliberation and members are satisfied that they've heard the entire presentation and debate, I will seek a proposal and a seconder and take a vote by a show of hands. Councillor Worth.
Yes, Chairman, happy to propose that we grant permissions as per the recommendation from the officer's report. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a proposition on the floor. Anyone wishing to second? Councillor Kimber.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Kimber. I can find your name. There you go. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak? We've got a proposal on the floor, duly seconded. All those in favour? For the benefit of the viewers from home, the committee has voted unanimously to approve that proposition. Okay, next item on the agenda is item 5D. It's an application PFUL 2023-03561, Store of Entry, Brandy Row, Portland, Chiswell, DT5 1AP. And that's form new roof structure, remove remnants of existing, and covering together with reinstatement of entrance door and side window within existing opening. And I invite Robert Parger to introduce this particular item. Over to you again, Robert.
Thank you, Chair. That working? Yeah. So yes, this application is for new roof structure, remove remnants of existing, and covering together with the reinstatement of entrance door and side window within the existing opening. An application, Mr. Ian Stone. The site location here indicated by the pink star again, is in the northwest end of Portland. We have Chesil Beach here on the left, and then the application here, which is set back off Brandy Row, which is sort of this road here. This application, this image shows the site within its sort of surrounding context, with the ground rising steeply up behind the site. And here it is here, just set in behind some existing buildings with Brandy Row at the front. The application site is located off this passageway here at the southern end of Brandy Row. And Brandy Row runs parallel and on the lee of the Chesil Beach Sea Defence Wall at the southern end of Chiswell Village in Portland. The application site is within the Fortuneswell defined development boundary and the Underhill Conservation Area. It's not a listed building, but is within the setting of a locally important building, which the remains of the 17th century cottages, which sort of this collection here. As can be seen in this photo, the existing walls of the building are a mixture of local stone, coarse ashlar and hollow concrete blockwork. There's currently no roof covering for the building, although the remnants of timbers suggest a mono-pitch structure within the more recent past. The existing ground floor plan, note the entry to the site through the archway, through this corridor, and then the application site here at the top of the image. The existing front elevation of the building, as seen from the photograph. Here we have the existing side elevation, the mono-pitch indicated, and an indicative line of the previous cottages there. The existing section A through A, and there are, shows the floor joist post holes set within the stonework. Existing side and rear elevations. Moving on to the proposed ground floor plan on the left. It shows mezzanine floors proposed on the left and right side, the doorway with the side window there at the front. There's the mezzanine store, and also the two indicating there the two roof lights. The front elevation, here we go, you see the two proposed roof lights, the mono-pitch roof reinstated, the doorway, which would be a stable door construction, marine ply, and the existing side window reinstated. Proposed side elevation with the mono-pitch roof, and the proposed section A through A with the new mono-pitch roof installed, and then the mezzanine floor levels there. And there again, the proposed side elevations and rear elevation. So the key planning issues, the site's within the defined development boundary, so the principle of development is accepted. There's no adverse impact identified on wildlife and habitat. There's no harm identified to heritage assets. The design is considered acceptable in keeping with the character of the area. No adverse impacts on highway have been identified, although a condition is going to be put forward regarding the construction period. And no adverse impact is identified on amenity. Therefore, the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to conditions relating to commencement, approved plans, external roof materials, windows and door detail, and again that construction method statement which just relates to managing any highway issues during construction. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Robert. There's no public speakers on this particular application. Are there any questions of a technical nature for the case officer? None? Okay. I therefore open the debate to members. Anyone wishing to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Sarah Williams, Bridport. I'm happy to support this application. It brings a building back into use, useful business use. So I recommend the recommendation.
Can I clarify the fact that that's a proposal? Thank you. We've got a proposition duly seconded. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Then I will take a vote by show of hands. All those in favour? For the benefit of those people viewing from home, the committee has voted unanimously to approve this application. Right, I now understand that there are some members of the committee who are now going to withdraw, as they've declared a pecuniary interest in items 5E and 5F. So I'll wait until they have removed themselves. Thank you, the three of you, for coming. Look forward to seeing you next month. Just going to check to make sure we're quorate. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, committee, there is items 5E and 5F left to debate on the agenda. Now, this application, both these items will be taken with one presentation, but there will be separate votes. Okay, so the application PHOU 2023-04779, which is 48 West Allington, Bridport, DD6 5BH, and application PLBC 2023-04780, again for the same premises, are listed on the agenda. And these applications are to install solar thermal panels and to install them on roof mountings. So I'm now going to call on Charlotte Loveridge, the case officer, to introduce both these items. Over to you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. So, as has just been explained, this is both presentations for both the householder and listed building application, and there will be a separate vote for them at the end. So the proposal is to install 2 solar thermal panels on the roof of 48 West Allington, Bridport, DT65BH. So this shows the location of the property here outlined in red. It's on the northern side of the B3162 that leads out of the centre of Bridport and goes west to the A35 with Chiddock and the western area beyond. Bridport Medical Area lies to the south, and it's largely residential, all to the north of the site. So this is a slightly more close-up plan of it. The blue area outlines the Bridport Conservation Area boundaries, which obviously includes the building, excuse me, and the red stars on these buildings indicate listed buildings. The property is a Grade 2 listed building and is listed in its own right, but the listing does include that the 4 villas here which are all of a very similar style, are considered to have a group value along with the Magdalen Almshouses just to the east here, and also number 42, West Allington, and the 6 buildings as a whole are considered to have group value as well as their own individual values. This is an aerial view of the property, which shows that they have a sort of driveway, front garden area to the front and gardens to the rear. And it's one of the 4 very similar Grade 2 listed detached villas which date from 1836, 1837. So the planning history for this property is that in 2008, the same proposal was put forward to install 2 solar collectors on the south-facing roof. This was refused, with the reasons being that it forms a visually incongruous feature that is harmful to the historic character and appearance of both the Grade 2 listed building and the group as a whole. The proposal came back again in 2011 as a full and listed building application and was again refused, with the reasons for refusal stating that their projection from the plane of the roof and their reflective qualities would be of a modern appearance that is not considered to be sympathetic to the historic character of the property. The solar panels would appear visually prominent and dominant on the front roof slope of this Grade 2 listed building, adversely affecting the setting of the adjoining listed buildings. The appeals were then, the applications were then went to appeal with the Planning Inspectorate, who dismissed both of the appeals in June 2012. And in his concluding paragraphs notes that I have no information to suggest that this could not be achieved by other forms of renewable energy, or that the collectors could not be located elsewhere on the property where they would not harm its special interest or character and appearance of the conservation area. They also concluded that I find the benefits of a low carbon economy would not outweigh the harm to the listed building and the conservation area, and I therefore conclude that both appeals should be dismissed. The reason the applications have come before committee is because the applications are strongly supported by Bridport Town Council and their transition to a low-carbon future, although obviously that is contrary to the officer recommendation. Here is the plan of the proposal, which is the same plans that were submitted in 2011 application, so it's identical. This shows the 2 panels on the front south elevation. This shows it in the plan form. Each solar collector would be 2.24 metres square each, and therefore just under 5 metres square in total. And they would be dark grey in colour. The main issues of the applications, the principle of development is supported by the fact that the site lies within the Bridport defined development boundary. The scale, design, impact and character on appearance, although small in scale, the solar thermal panels would be an incongruous feature on the character and appearance of the listed building and the Bridport Conservation Area, which is contrary to policies ENV 10, 12 and 13 of the local plan. Character and impact on the heritage assets. The proposed development creates less than substantial harm to the designated heritage assets. That is not outweighed by public benefit, which is contrary to policy ENV4, the local plan. And the submissions by the applicant fail to successfully demonstrate that there are no alternatives which could deliver the benefits without the same level of harm. So they haven't taken on board what was said in the 2012 Planning Inspectorate decision to give any evidence of why other areas on the property or other methods could not be used. And the impact on the wider landscape, given the small scale, it's considered it wouldn't have an impact on the wider character and special qualities of the Dorset AONB. This shows a roadside view of the property, which shows the front elevation where obviously the proposed panels would sit. Whilst it is a fairly shallow pitched roof, the inspector did note in their comments that whilst it is a shallow pitched roof, they would be very visible regardless of this. This shows the collection of the 4 villas, which are all very similar, and noted for the fact that currently there's no additions or alterations that have been made to the roofs. Okay, so with regards to the character and impact on the heritage assets, the submitted heritage statement provides no real detail of the significance of the heritage assets or the impact of the proposals on that significance, or the harm to not only the individual building but the group listing of the buildings. There's no specifications provided of the solar panels, no detailed plans, sections, loadings, scope of works or schedule. And despite previous advice given by conservation officers and the planning inspectorate's 2012 appeal decision, no information has been provided to suggest that these aims could not be achieved by other forms or elsewhere on the property. Whilst described as temporary, fixtures would have a lifespan of at least 10 years and likely many more, which I don't think is really considered to be temporary. Reversible maybe, but not temporary. It is therefore considered that the adverse impact would become permanent and contradicts the MPPS requirement for local planning authorities, which is paragraph 199 of the MPPF, requires that great weight be given to the conservation of designated heritage assets, and the more important the asset, the greater the weight should be. In addition, paragraph 200 requires any level of harm to their significance should require clear and convincing justification, which has not been received. There is plenty of information available regarding energy efficiency in historic buildings. Historic England have a number of publications, and there's one in 2018 published which says that it's generally not considered sympathetic to a building's appearance to have a solar panel or other equipment fixed to its main elevations, that is, the face or faces seen from the direction from which it is most commonly viewed. Buildings with main elevations aligned in the direction of optimal solar radiation may present special installation problems with regards to visual impact. With regards to heritage assets and renewable energy, Dorset Council fully acknowledges the climate and ecological emergency, and as such provides considerable information on what we can all do to help reverse the effects of climate change. And this can be found on the Protecting Our Natural Environment, Climate and Ecology pages of the Dorset Council website. This reinforces the many options that if individuals have. The installation of solar panels and double glazing are not the only ones. The overwhelming majority of buildings in Bridport are unlisted, and as such owners can proceed with energy saving or generation alterations without applying for permission. Only 2% of the nation's building stock is listed, and that should also be recognised as a community benefit and something to be preserved and conserved for future generations to enjoy. If lost, it will be lost forever. The historic character of Bridport and the surrounding area is identified as one of the key attributes in the Bridport Neighbourhood Plan worthy of retention. I think it's Objective 3 in the Bridport Area Neighbourhood Plan that states to maintain, protect and enhance the unique nature of the area, its heritage, important features, character and its environmental assets. The Bridport Area Neighbourhood Plan also does not have a policy relating to designated heritage assets, as it acknowledges that they are protected both under national and local plan policies. The contribution that the panels would make to the provision of renewable energy and responding to the climate emergency would be a personal benefit and so insignificant so as not to provide a public benefit that would outweigh the adverse impacts that would arise on the character and appearance of the host property and wider area. It's also contrary to Bridport Area Neighbourhood Plan Policy D9 for environmental performance, which state that applicants are encouraged to design buildings to last, employing modern innovative technologies and methods of construction, for instance, reduce construction costs, minimise energy consumption and carbon emissions during the building's lifetime, such as using southerly-facing roof slopes for solar thermal and/or photovoltaic installations where possible, integrated into the roof design, subject to the appropriate level of heritage and conservation assessment. And as already discussed, no clear and convincing justification has been put forward to us for that. Therefore, the recommendation is for P/House/2023-04779 is that the committee refuse planning permission. I won't read out the whole thing. But it's basically that the potential social and economics of the proposals do not outweigh the identified harm. The panels would be of an incongruous appearance, not considered sympathetic to the special architecture or historic character of the property. The proposals would adversely affect the setting of the adjoining listed buildings and do not preserve or enhance the character and appearance of the conservation area. The recommendation for the listed building application is also very similar, and the recommendation is that the committee refuse for largely the same reasons, and also because no information has been put forward to discuss why other options aren't available. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Charlotte. I now invite Simon Ludgate, the agent, to address the committee. Again, Simon, you've got 3 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application is really a matter of principle more than anything else. Obviously, the proposal has failed on a number of occasions at a number of levels, but times are changing, and I think the Bridport Town Council's comments on this application are relevant. They strongly support this application. It's 5 square metres of a dark material in the same plane as the roof. It takes up a very small space. The roof itself has a very shallow pitch, so you don't see it in context that clearly. I think there comes a point where you just have to make a decision as to what is the significance of the harm that this will do to that building. It won't impact on the fabric of the building. It's removable in the future, and the building would return to its original character. But it would provide valuable energy on this south-facing roof elevation, and I would ask, please, that you support this application as a matter of principle. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Mr. Leggett. I now call on Charlotte Loveridge to respond with any salient points she may wish to clarify. Back to you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the shallow pitch, the inspector acknowledged back in 2011 that the pitch of the roof is shallow, but that it can still be viewed regardless from the public realm. And both the planning inspector and the senior conservation of design officer have both assessed that the significance of the historic assets are damaged by the proposed development. That's not just the listed building itself on its own, that's also combined with its interest as a group listing with the adjacent villas and several other buildings, and as part of the Bridport Conservation Area. And whilst, it can be argued that it is only a very small scale proposal, it's the incremental erosion of our designated heritage assets, which also in turn contribute to the quality of the conservation area, that if you start chipping away at, their historic interest, you then start to lose basically the essence of their heritage. And whilst it can be reversed, as I think probably most of us know, once something's in place, it doesn't often tend to move all that quickly. So whilst you could say in 25 years it will be removed and therefore no damage has been done, the actual appearance and benefit of that heritage asset has been eroded for that duration. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Charlotte. Are there any questions of a technical nature for the case officer? Councillor Kimber.
Chair, thank you for the report, and I feel we got an ecological emergency. I don't see this as a permanent change to the building. I can go along with the idea that it's only there for, well, we said 10 plus years. It's how do we get round to it that it's not something permanent? You know, we're not removing the roof or building a dormer window or something. It's something that I would fully expect that people would be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kimber. Come back to Charlotte to respond.
Thank you. I mean, to my mind, anything sort of in position for more than about 18 months, I think I would consider to be a permanent, whether it's a solar panel, a building, or whatever. And I think there is some case law which does slightly support that view. Yes, it would be reversible, but as I say, the visual impact that would have on the historic building would be, you know, permanent for at least a generation, probably. And as I say, the likelihood of it ever being taken down is slim to not guaranteed. Plus, we have the issue that the applicant, as I say, does not appear to have taken on board what the planning inspector has said and explored or given us evidence that they have explored any other options of how this could be achieved, rather, you know, whether it could be put in the back garden or something like that. So those options have not been explored and presented to us as though this is the only possible option of achieving any environmental benefit for that household.
Thank you, Charlotte. So, Councillor Kimber, does that answer your question? I understand. Councillor Worth, you may wish to ask a technical question.
Thank you very much, Councillor John Worth. You've more or less answered the question, but I understand that there has been no engagement with the applicant with regard to looking at the alternatives, although there are a number of other roofs, albeit they're not south-facing, that would serve the purpose with modern panels that are far more efficient, and they could increase the number of panels. So, but they haven't engaged with the planning authority with regard to that, I am assuming.
So, do you wish to respond to that?
No, they haven't. I mean, there's been no pre-application submission put forward, or as I say, there was nothing within the application that supports what the planning inspector had advised, that they explore other options and present any evidence as to why this is the only possible option for them.
Okay. Are there any other technical questions? Okay. So I now open the debate to members. Is there anyone working?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. In light of the answers we received from the planning officers and also the planning inspector's recommendations and his what he stated at the last inspector's report, I wish to propose that we support the officer's recommendation to refuse grant of permission for this. I think the applicant needs to go away and think about the alternatives, as this has already been pointed out to them on a number of occasions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Worth. We've got a proposition on the floor at the moment. I'm looking for a seconder before I continue. Councillor Ireland, do you wish to second? Do you wish to make a comment?
Yeah, Nick Island, Crossways Ward. I will be seconding it. I'd like to make a comment as well, if I may. I do find myself conflicted by this. You know, I've got 7 kilowatts of PV on my roof. I've got 65 vacuum tubes heating 500 litres of thermal store. I know absolutely the benefits of generating your own electricity and hot water. And they do need to be on the south-facing slope. And I think the thing that turned it for me was the picture of the 4 villas as a whole. As a group, I think that is important. And I think sticking 2 flat plate solar thermal on the roof would actually affect that. And I actually know there are alternatives. There's a local Dorset company called Solex who manufacture a solar thermal system which looks like tiles, because they are tiles. It's underneath the tiles. And something like that installed on 1 or all of 4 of the villas would look perfect. So I think the applicant does need to go away because there are alternatives, as I've just mentioned. And so reluctantly, I will be seconding Councillor Worth's proposal.
Okay, we've got a proposal duly seconded to support the officer's recommendation to refuse. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Okay. Right, okay, right. We've got to take 2 votes as the 2 are connected. If there's no more deliberation and members are satisfied they've heard the entire presentation and debate, I would take a vote of show of hands on the first recommendation, PHOU 2023-04779. All those in favour? Yes. Okay. We're now going to take a vote. Second item, 5F, which is application PLBC, listed building consent, 2023-04780 for the same premises. Right, we have a proposed. Do we need a second proposer and seconder? Right, we have the same proposer and seconder, so I think we need to state that you propose this particular application, please, Councillor Brett.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, happy to propose the second part of the planning application, which is the listed building consent. So, yes, we refuse consent for that.
Councillor Ireland?
Yeah, I'll second that.
I've just been reminded to put my mic on, so I have done so, as duly told off. For the benefit of viewers from home, both applications 5E and 5F have been unanimously supported of the officer's recommendation to refuse. Thank you. So that concludes the planning applications. Okay, thank you very much for your endurance. We've got item 6 on the agenda, urgent items. I have had no prior notification of any items of business which is considered to be urgent pursuant to section 100B 4B of the Local Government Act 1972. And item 7 on the agenda, exempt business. I've had no prior notification of any items viewed as likely to disclose exempt information within the meaning of paragraph 3 of the Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. For your information, committee and members of the public, that concludes this particular planning meeting. Thank you for your endurance.